What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today I'm just going to be looking at some Toronto Maple Leaf trade rumors, a little bit of trade talk. You guys know that's what I specialize in on this channel. I love talking trades, I love talking rumors, and of course I love talking about my Toronto Maple Leafs. So if you guys are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe, join the squad. I'd love to have you guys here. So the Leafs are actually playing pretty decent at the time I'm recording this. It is November 21st. So again, this could be a little bit outdated when you are personally watching it, but they are playing a little bit better. But it doesn't change the fact that they've had some injury trouble this year. And again, Jake Muzzin is more than likely going to be out for the season. And if not the season, probably until the playoffs. Of course, if the Leafs get there, which this isn't me being negative, I'm just saying anything could happen. There's a lot of good teams in the NHL this year, but the Leafs need to find ways to acquire offense from their blue line while also acquiring some defensive structure for their blue line, which doesn't grow on trees, and likely a move that can finally get somebody that can play in that top six and not be bounced around when it comes to their forward group. Now, that, again, it doesn't seem easy. But with Jake Muzzin going on LTIR, the Leafs can probably play around with their cap situation a little bit. But the reason why I'm talking about this is because there's an article written by Luke Fox a couple days ago talking about how the Leafs might have to be interested in some of the big name defensemen that are going to be available. Now, he does mention the Maple Leafs are spending more on forwards than any other team, and because reputations are hard to shake, the belief is they are a better offensive team than they are a defensive one. Yet, the Maple Leafs rank 5th league-wide in shots allowed and 8th in goals allowed per game. Meanwhile, they sit 17th in shots and 25th in goals. So they might need a little bit more offense. Now, Kyle Dubas is going to make a trade. More than likely, he's probably going to do it. It's not saying that here, but I can guarantee you he's going to have to do something. He's probably going to prioritize his blue line. Heck, Dubas said as much Monday when he addressed his plan to deal with Jake Muzzin on LTIR. That said, unless the Leafs 5-on-5 scoring finds a groove, we're not ruling out multiple moves. Now, the Leafs blue line, as you can see here, does have some pieces. Now, I am including TJ Brodie back in the lineup because when this team is fully healthy, minus Jake Muzzin, they do have some decent depth. Now, if we're looking at their cap space with Muzzin on LTIR, I believe it should sit around $2.8 million. Now, you also could find guys to send down here that might help out that situation a little bit. And we're going to get into some guys that might help free up some cap space for you to go out there and make a bigger move than a $2.8 million player. A guy like Jordy Ben might stay in the lineup. He might just be a healthy scratch. You might send him down. You might trade him. Who knows? Justin Holl has been in trade discussion for a long time. There's even been a little bit of talk if you make a big move to trade Rasmus Sandin, which I would probably be against. But there is some pieces that can be moved there. And again, same thing in the forward group. You might trade a Kerfoot. You might trade an Engvall. And these are just guys that have been in the trade talks for a while now. And with other certain pieces, there's still value to some of these guys. Like Kerfoot still has value. People seem to think he doesn't. He definitely still has value. And even a Justin Holl has value. He still can chew up minutes. He still kills penalties. And he's actually a pretty cheap right-handed defenseman. And that's why the Leafs have yet to trade either of those guys, is because they're still cost controllable. But if the Leafs want to be a better team and they want to make additions to this team, you're going to have to add by subtracting, and you're going to have to subtract some decent players potentially, but you're hoping to shed some of this like almost dead weight or dead money. Now, by no means am I saying this is what the roster looks like on any given night. I just put players where, you know, they usually play or where they should be playing, or, you know, just in spots where it kind of makes sense, right? I'm definitely not saying this would be my preferred lineup. But again, you're looking at just under $3 million in cap space, but you're going to need more. If you're going to go out there and you're going to try to get, you know, a Klingberg or maybe even a Matt Dumba or a Carlson. And again, any names that I say right now, I'm not saying they should go after those guys, but I want to make individual videos on some of those guys because what I'm finding is a lot of reporters and some media and some fans, and again, this isn't a diss to anybody, but they see a shiny name that might have been good at one point in their career and think that they should just be traded to the Maple Leafs. If you do some research or watch some games or do any sort of, looking at statistics or even a quick eye test for 10 minutes in a game, sometimes you can tell these guys are past being good. And there's some guys that are being suggested for the Leafs that I don't necessarily agree with, and I don't think that they really help this team, and we'll get to that in future videos. But I want your opinion down below, so that way I can make videos. Let me know down below who you guys think the Leafs should be interested in. This video is far from over, by the way. I want to talk about some players that the Leafs might have to shed in order to acquire some pieces. Now, Kerfoot's making $3.5 million. Is Kerfoot still a useful player? Yes, he's a two-way player. He can play in the defensive side of the game. He can put up points, but he has been struggling in that aspect to start the season. Now, the Leafs are putting him in a top 6 role here and there, but it's the same problem that I have with a guy like Nick Robertson or even a guy like Calle Yarncrook. If you're trying to get more out of this player, you need to let them stay in one spot and let them run with it for a very long time. And I'm talking like 20 plus games in that same position, because how are you going to know if they develop any chemistry, or how are you going to know if they can develop any sort of momentum if you keep moving them around? Any given night, Kerfoot is a bottom 6 defensive role type of player, or he's a top 6 scoring winger. You can't flip-flop this guy and expect consistency when you're not letting him play a consistent game. And that's where I would defend Kerfoot, is that while he is sometimes making some boneheaded moves and maybe not playing up to the standards that we need him to, you also have to kind of play both sides here and realize that he's not exactly in a position to succeed all the time. But Kerfoot is a great hockey player. Again, the trade that he was involved in kind of left a sour taste in a lot of Leaf fans' mouths. But he's got the modified no trade clause for this season. He's struggling. 19 games, 6 points. But as you can see, like last year he had 51 points. The year before that, 23. But, performed in the playoffs with 6 points in 7 games. And he's always been a consistent, on average, 35 to 40 point guy. So for that 3.5, you are getting some production. You're getting a guy that can score 15 goals when given the opportunity. Again, if he stays and plays in a top 6 role, he's going to pot you 15 goals. He's playing with talented guys. But you have to let him play there for a long time. I still think there's value there, and I'm sure there's teams that are interested. But again, you're only moving this size of a contract if you know that you're going to be replacing him with, a solid top 4 defenseman, or, a guy that's going to help contribute in the top 6 for the Leafs. And that's why it would have to be part of a package or something like that. Then there's Pierre Engvall, who's making $2.2 million just for this season. The Leafs could get out of this contract. They might have to attach a pick to it. But again, I don't think Engvall's the worst player. 4 points in 18 games isn't really, the greatest. But again, last year, 35 points, career high in goals. The guy has a lot of tools, but he needs to learn that he could be more physical. And again, it's the same type of thing. I wish he had a role, because it seems like he doesn't really have a role on this team. He's just he's kind of tossed around in the bottom 6, and some nights he's got to be a physical, power forward type threat, which he isn't, and unfortunately he's not. And then some nights he's like a defensive specialist. So it's like, what is his role? If he had one, it would make a lot of sense. But for me, the Leafs could trade this guy and it wouldn't do anything to this team except give them a little bit more cap space, which again is unfortunate, because I think Engvall has a lot of good parts to his game. He hasn't showed it this season. Justin Holl, the guy who's been in every trade rumor known to man. Justin Holl making $2 million as a right-handed shot defenseman, that just doesn't grow on trees. I mean, the guy is not awful, but he isn't great either. He can give you some decent amount of points. Like 20 points for a defenseman isn't too bad, considering he's supposed to be a defensive style defenseman. But again, kind of struggling this year on offense and on defense, which is his position. But he chews up minutes. And unless the Leafs are going to get back a defenseman, they can't move on from Justin Holl. So if the Leafs go out there and they make a splash, Justin Holl's likely going to be the guy on the way out because you're shedding some money there and you're also replacing him with somebody who's likely going to be better suited for this team. So you have to figure out if you're actually going to be able to replace his minutes. Regardless of what he does during those minutes, there's some games where Justin Holl proves that he can play those minutes and do it effectively. And then there's a lot of games where you go, get off the ice. But again, that's the same thing with Kerfoot. It's the same thing with Engvall. It's the same thing with Holl. If there's takers, that's great. But you need to find replacements. You know, a guy like Ben temporarily on the blue line can replace a Justin Holl. But is that your long-term solution? No, because you want to get better. Nick Robertson, I want him to get more looks in that top six. So getting rid of Kerfoot, sure, you're taking a bit of a risk, but I think it's a risk that actually makes sense. You can put Robertson there and let him run with it for a long time. I want to see what he can do with 20 to 25 games. If it doesn't work out, you go and you upgrade in that position. The Leafs are talented enough where losing a Kerfoot or a Justin Holl or a Pierre Engvall isn't going to do much to the team. But you need to find guys that can replace those minutes and do it at the same level until you can get that big splash, until you can get that big, piece that can come back to this team. And if you're able to trade those guys, like just hypothetically, if you trade a Kerfoot, you can obviously see, we're just going to use LTIR to get rid of that money. You're at $6.3 million. And, you could slide in a Wayne Simmons to the lineup and then boom. Okay, hold on. Cap friendly, please agree with me. There you go. You still have 4 forward lines with guys that you like. This is still an effective lineup. You could try Yarncrook again in that top 6 if you don't like Robertson there. But you're able to use that money in other places. And if you're getting a defenseman, you're more than likely going to have to get rid of one. So you could use $8.3 million to really go out there and acquire somebody for your blue line and acquire somebody that can play in your top 6. I think it's very doable. The Leafs still have picks that they can trade. They have prospects that they can move on from. But again, you're dipping into the prospect pool again. You're dipping into the pick pool again. But when your job's on the line and when your team's window is closing a little bit, you have to make these moves. So let me know what you guys think down below. We're going to get into player-specific videos, trade videos and stuff like that coming up because I do believe the Leafs will be interested in a lot of different people. So keep on the lookout for that. If you are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe, join the squad, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video or stream. Leave your suggestions down below for my next videos. Peace.